Hi all, welcome to another edition, our first try at teaching you guys remotely. Today I wanted to go over policing in the United States, some basics for you guys. Hopefully it's not too long of a video. I have a couple other videos embedded, so it's not just me talking the whole time and showing you stuff, but I have the Prezi, as you can see right here, using the virtual background and all kinds of things, just to try to make it a little bit more interesting and keep you informed as we make do with the conditions we got. But hope you're all doing well. Kind of miss being in front of the classroom, miss being in front of you all, but I'm going to have a little fun this way. And hopefully most of you watch enough of this that I'll keep doing these, because I think you guys, we should look over the material we've learned and go over things and review stuff. So we're going to review uniform policing in the United States. So the first thing I really want to go over, just like I said, I know it looked like it's going to be normal PowerPoints as usual. It's not. I'm going to make it very quick as the stuff you guys should know or learn or have some knowledge of over time. So really it's the fast, quick stuff. No need to write things down. Obviously, you can always watch this video again and again, I know. So the first thing to go over really though is just understand when we're talking about law enforcement, who are the people we're talking about? And just to give you an example here with this graph is that it's mostly at the state and local level. That as much as we hear about the feds, federal court stuff, and bankruptcies, it's overwhelmingly 98% or so at the state and local level. So when we talk about law enforcement, the ones the most in the field are going to be state and local. And by state, I do mean Virginia for us, and the local for us is county level. But Virginia does have cities, so they count as well. Very little cases are actually held at the national level, things like tampering with your mail, counterfeiting, espionage, drugs, and doing illegal activity across state lines. It's the only time the feds are really brought in unless something's super serious. So just once again, to give you an idea of size, is that the local police make up 50% of all police forces. And to give you another idea what that means is we're talking at a city level. Virginia is one of the few states that have cities as a distinct entity. Most states have a county size and then a city police force, but not a city sheriff. The sheriff is done by the county, since the sheriffs are in control of the jail. That's their main job. They do operate as police forces in most of the rural localities, but for the most part, that's why you hear PD, like New York PD, NYPD, and Chicago, and DC, and all those. They have their separate police forces, but they also have sheriffs, because their sheriffs also run the jails. Also, one thing to look at, though, is the size of the organizations. According to this, 9,000 state and local agencies have less than 10 people in their agencies. Some of these sheriff's departments in these counties and rural areas are very remote and with very few people. So there might be a sheriff on call or a deputy on call, but you're talking 1 or 2 people for the entire county. Now the counties are small. So a few overview of federal agencies. You've heard them before, so let's talk about them. The Department of Justice is the one that holds almost all of them. There's a few others now that are different, but the Department of Justice is the main one. So the first one in Department of Justice we're going to look at is ATF. And what they go over, pretty self-explanatory term, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. They are responsible for preventing acts of terrorism, for obtaining warrants or serving warrants on violent criminals. They look into criminal organizations. But basically, those are their 3 areas, but they deal with a lot of organized crime, mainly trafficking and explosives as well. So if they're called in, it's a big deal, and they have the hardware. If they're responsible for our firearms and they're serving warrants on people that are well armed, they have the hardware and gear to conduct those raids. Armored cars, battering ram kind of tanks and stuff like that. If the ATF's called in, it's a big deal. The other agency, obviously, is the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They're the main law enforcement arm of the federal government. So if FBI is called in, they're dealing with federal crime-related cases. or serial killers, heavy-duty criminal crimes such as that, trafficking as well, um, counterintelligence, domestic intelligence, cyber crimes, since those are usually over state lines. They're the main group to investigate. And finally, the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, they're in charge of mainly going after those that violate the law regarding drugs. So marijuana, trafficking, drugs, cocaine, meth, all that kind of stuff. But also looking into doctors and prescriptions and whether or not they are filling out proper prescriptions and keeping track of the scheduled classified drugs. For me, I have ADHD, and so the last year or two, they moved up almost all ADHD stimulants to class 1, which meant people could not renew medication over the phone. They had to meet in person, and you only got a 1-month supply. I'm not using one of those types of meds, so I can have a multiple month refill. But they are the ones that will organize and watch out just in case some of those laws are violated. So the other federal agency that's the major size is the Department of Homeland Security. They are also at the level of cabinet. They're dealing mainly with counterterrorism, responding to natural disasters, and immigration and customs, Border Patrol, Coast Guard, FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Administration. And the one other thing that moved into them is the Secret Service. The Secret Service was originally founded for counterfeiting, but now they are the main arm of the security detail for the President of the United States and the buildings they're in, and any candidate. Once a candidate running for office has a high enough following, I believe it's something like, within the top 3 or something like that, you're given a Secret Service contingent. To show you what they do and a better example of their training, here's an example of what we saw and what lessons they've learned since of the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan. So the next group to talk about is the state police. Like you might have seen, like Virginia State Highway Patrol. They're the ones watching the highways, rural roads, maybe even they're called in a lot of times to watch the main roads or the main, they're called in sometimes to take over a local police agency if there's something going on. A lot of times when that happens, the most frequent is unfortunately in the circumstances of a funeral of a particular officer, that the offices will run and the sheriffs areas and localities will run a skeletal crew and man the rest by the Virginia state so that they can be included. So the next one is the local law enforcement, particularly sheriffs and deputies. They run the jails, mostly for mostly for low population groups, but oftentimes they serve as both. So what does law enforcement actually do? So what are the functions? So this is what we have them. The first, and obviously the most obvious, is law enforcement. They investigate crime, they make arrests, they serve warrants, they testify in court. They do the things to put people in jail who in prison or convict if they do these crimes. They are the ones to enforce the laws that are handed to them. Second thing they're trying to do is to create order maintenance, crowd control, traffic control during graduations. Fortunately this year, we'll see what happens with graduations, but traffic control, sometimes called in dispute, and not resulting necessarily in charges. Hi, now for an example about the police officers settling a dispute, courtesy of Seinfeld. And finally, they do some escorting services in case of extreme need. They'll escort funerals. They'll take people to the hospital in case they're needed. Chasing animals, yes, they do animal control and whatnot. Also wellness checks, particularly for the school. So let's say I haven't heard from you in a while, and I start getting worried because you're hitting the 10 to 15 days where you haven't been in school. I email you, no response. I call you crying, where are you? I miss you, and all that kind of fun stuff. You don't show up. I would go to guidance and to the social worker and ask for a wellness check, and they might actually send a cop to go and knock on the door and make sure everyone's okay. That's how, oh dear. That's how I got on the news. So 2 years ago, about 300 yards from where I'm sitting right now, is a neighbor I've never met before. And it was my first year living in this house. And he, oh, well, that's been convicted. So yes, he kidnapped his girlfriend and his two kids, sons, and imprisoned them in that house for 2 years. So much that no one's heard of them. So one of her sisters hadn't heard from her sister in a while. So she called the police and said, this is the last known address. This is her boyfriend's house. The cops show up and they make a lot of noise and they find out that that's where they are. So the news came by and all my neighbors were trying to hide and I had no clue what's going on. So I got interviewed and I was just kind of, oh well. So some concepts to understand when doing this. One of them is information gathering. So where they try to get the impact, understanding of law, what's it gonna do, trying to gather what the people want, how the people will respond. They'll investigate missing child reports, even when there's no foul play suspected, and avoid the public dangerous road conditions or advise Department of Transportation about roads. So that's part of their job too, is to advise dangerous conditions, be on the lookout for certain things like that. Like this quarantine, they can actually enforce certain laws or certain orders of the governor. I read recently that they closed like Hobby Lobby for staying open in a time where they were not considered an essential service or need or job. So to give you two examples, here's two really busy intersections internationally. One of them's in St. Petersburg, Russia, where there's going to be a few accidents to see, unfortunately. And then the other one is looking at the impact of roads like a stoplight. Like what would that do to this road or stop signs? And this is in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, the capital. The next question, here's where I'm going to show you a couple of videos. The idea is, what discretion do they have? If a cop sees me walk across the middle of a street in a city, I'm jaywalking. Okay, I mean, they can pull me, search me, find me, whatever, for crossing the street. Yes, they can do that. Will they? Not really. Mr. Conway gave a great example of that in the beginning of the year when he said, you know, look, if you just do what we ask you to do, and even if you break the rules and do what we ask you and we tell you to stop, you're not going to be a problem. You know, if we tell you to take your headphones out and you're like, you don't control me, now you're escalating. Normally it would be like one and done, not even a problem. But now that you're doing it several times and making a scene of it of yourself, you're causing more problems. And that's the idea of discretion. What do they enforce? What do they not? The problem with discretion, and this is where there's been several attempts to reform the whole system, who gets to exercise how much discretion and on whom? Because when that happens, there becomes biases that show up. People of color are more likely to be searched. People of color are more likely to go to jail for the same marijuana charge. Yet white people are usually the ones that have the drugs, at least at a higher rate. More people have it. However, more blacks will go to jail for it. So those are the kinds of things on discretion. Problem is, how do they do that? So here's an example of some of the problems with discretion. The first one is from a school. And let me see what you guys think of that one.
Forget about zero tolerance when it comes to drug use. That's the message some Georgetown students say the school district is sending tonight. Good evening, I'm Walt Macaborski.
And I'm Judy Madger. This is a story that has everyone talking on social media. A new drug testing policy allows students to fail 4 times before being firmly disciplined. KITV's Melanie Lofton talked to a student today. And Mel, what did he have to say?
Yeah, Judy, most U.S. schools have a zero-tolerance drug policy. We're talking about expulsion, suspensions, exclusion from extracurricular activities. In Georgetown, only that last one is an option, and that's only after the 4th failed drug test. But school administrators say that's how they like it. 18-year-old Ariane Warner is a former running back. He says parents might be surprised at how easily kids can get drugs in schools.
I've seen personally, hear about it, you know, it's all around.
It's something school districts are aware of. Georgetown ISD is doing something about it, bringing back random drug testing.
Starting in August, it's going to be affecting our high school students who are enrolled in extracurricular activities, both in fine arts and in athletics.
Brad Dimitrovich is the school district's spokesman.
We're trying to be more preventative than punitive.
Those preventative measures means no suspension if a student tests positive. Instead, the parents meet with the school, the student goes to counseling, and takes drug tests again. The second failure results in a 30-day suspension from extracurricular activities. A third failure is a 1-year suspension. A fourth failure means the student is barred from extracurricular activities for good. Positive drug tests will not affect classroom time. Will it work? This student isn't so sure.
People would just do it and think they can get over, you know.
We took that concern to Dimitrovich.
What would you say to people who thinks this policy is lenient?
Well, you have to look at the history of this program in the past. The last time that we did it in a full school year, we did over 3,000 tests. We only had 9 children test positive.
Now, a lot of parents think these should be more strict, but national drug surveys show that harsh discipline policies do not necessarily reduce drug use. Live in Georgetown, Melanie Lofton, KITV News.
Giving a kid 4 times before they're finally kicked off the team. What do you think? Do you think that's effective? Do you think that would work? Do you think it'd be a bigger hassle on administrators, or do you think it would actually? And the problem here is this: kicking them out of teams or having those 0 strikes, that isn't necessarily that effective either. So it becomes a, what do we do? On the other hand, here's an example of a nonviolent drug offender who was convicted by the testimony of others without any physical evidence connecting to the crime and the damages that it causes. So here's that one.
My life is about my parents for some reason. I do a lot of things for them. I try to enjoy my parents and learn as much as I can, and my life is kind of about being a good daughter. And that's what I do. I work and I be a good daughter. This is our normal. I see her all the time. We talk every day. I'm not saying it's right, but this is our life, so I just try to live accordingly and not go crazy.
Sharonda was convicted as a first-time nonviolent drug offender based primarily on co-conspirator testimony. There were no drugs found on Sharonda, no evidence of any drug buys, no type of surveillance on Sharonda. However, she was still convicted based solely on the testimony of these co-conspirators. It has been devastating on her daughter. When Sharonda went to prison, her daughter was only 8 years old. She was a child. She knew her mother was in prison and that she would be gone for a long time. But the harsh reality set in the older Clinisha got that her mother was never coming home.
She's the sunshine of my life. She's such a good person, and she's stuck in this place where she doesn't belong. And it's really hard being a part of this because it's not just her, it's us. I'm a part of this. Every day I come across a new obstacle being 24 where I feel like other people can just call their mom and get that easy access help where I'm having like a really hard time figuring it out. So I do feel like I'm in prison because everything has a limit. And I feel like if I want to move to Canada, I'm going to leave you. So half the things that she can do, I can't really do either. I can't leave her. I wouldn't leave her. I can't even have a baby if I was in love because I don't want to bring my baby in this prison and have to explain this or go through a birth without my mother. Like, that's crazy to me. I wouldn't do it. I will wait until the end of time.
That faith that she has is very contagious, and there's no way I can doubt that the president will grant Sharonda's pending clemency petition. I have to believe that he will, with conviction in my heart, because without President Obama, Sharonda Jones will die in federal prison.
Every now and then you'll get a call like, oh, we heard they're gonna start doing clemency releases. During that time, I feel like, oh, I gotta get my house together. I gotta make sure I got money because this person is gonna rely on you for a little bit. It's just like a little stressful. I just wanna be everything she needs me to be so we can move on with our life. Well, she gave me this, my 24th birthday. It's a butterfly, and it says, just when the caterpillar thought the world was over, it became a butterfly.
Anyways, these were the things I want to discuss this week. Next week, we're going to talk specifically about officer-involved shootings, the role of police in that, the laws behind it, and the rules regulating when they can use legal force and when they cannot. Hope you enjoyed the video. Keep in touch. Send me an email if you're interested in some stuff. If you want more learning material or something to read, feel free to contact me. I hope you're all doing all right, and good luck.